I stared at my phone in disbelief, reading the text message that had just shattered 15 years of silence. Emergency dinner at 8 p.m. Don't be late. The number belonged to my mother, the same woman who held a funeral for me when I was 13 years old. I was sitting in my Manhattan penthouse office, having just been featured on the cover of Forbes as the youngest female CEO to break into the Fortune 500. My tech company was valued at $2 billion, and here was the mother who declared me dead to their entire community after I refused to marry their business partner's 35-year-old son. The memories came flooding back as I held that phone, my hands trembling despite everything I had accomplished. My name is Casey, and at 13, my traditional Pakistani-American parents gave me an ultimatum that would destroy my childhood forever. They demanded I agree to marry Marcus, a businessman more than twice my age, who owned several convenience stores across New Jersey. When I refused, screaming that I wanted to finish school and go to college, my father's face turned stone cold. "You are no longer our daughter," he had said in Urdu, his voice cutting through me like broken glass. "You have brought shame to our family name." My mother, Farah, stood behind him with tears streaming down her face, but she never said a word in my defense. Within hours, I was on the street with nothing but the clothes on my back and my school backpack. They changed the locks, blocked my phone number, and told everyone I had run away and would never return. But the real shock came 3 years later when I was 16, living in my third foster home and working at a local diner to save money for college. My foster sister showed me something on Facebook that made my blood run cold. She had found photos from a funeral service, and there I was staring at pictures of my own memorial. My parents had told their entire community that I died in a car accident. The photos showed dozens of people gathered around a closed casket draped in white cloth, their faces twisted with grief. My mother wore black, clutching a framed photo of me from when I was 12, sobbing into my father's shoulder. Relatives I remembered from childhood stood with flowers, wiping away tears, for a girl they believed was gone forever. The most devastating image showed my childhood bedroom transformed into a shrine. My bed was covered with white sheets surrounded by candles and more photos. Prayer beads hung from my old desk lamp. Fresh flowers sat on my windowsill every day, replaced weekly, according to the timestamps on the photos. I scrolled through comment after comment from family friends expressing their condolences. "Such a bright young girl taken too soon. May Allah grant her peace. Your family is in our prayers during this difficult time." The entire community had mourned a version of me that never existed while completely erasing the real Casey, who was fighting to survive just 20 miles away. That night, I cried harder than I had since the day they threw me out. It was one thing to be disowned, but to discover they had actually buried me, grieved for me, and moved on with their lives, while I was struggling in foster care, was a betrayal beyond anything I could have imagined. They had not just rejected me, they had killed the memory of who I really was. From that moment, something fundamental changed inside me. If my parents had declared me dead, then Casey, the obedient daughter, truly was gone. In her place rose a young woman determined to build something extraordinary from nothing. I threw myself into my studies with an intensity that worried my teachers. By 17, I had graduated valedictorian and earned a full scholarship to MIT for computer science. But more importantly, I had started coding in my spare time, teaching myself programming languages and building simple applications on the ancient computer in my foster home's basement. My first breakthrough came during my freshman year at college. I was volunteering at a homeless shelter in Boston when I realized how difficult it was for kids aging out of foster care to find resources. Most had no idea where to get job training, mental health support, or even a decent meal. I spent 3 months building an app called Phoenix Connect, designed to link homeless youth with local services. The app started small, just connecting kids in Boston with nearby resources, but word spread quickly. Social workers began recommending it to their clients. Shelters started asking if I could customize features for their specific programs. Within 2 years, Phoenix Connect was operating in 12 cities across the Northeast. I lived on ramen noodles and granola bars, sleeping in the computer lab when my dorm became too noisy for coding. My professors noticed my dedication and connected me with potential investors. At 20, I pitched my expanded platform to a venture capital firm in downtown Boston. I remember that meeting clearly because I had slept outside their office building for 3 consecutive nights, determined to get just 5 minutes of their time. My clothes were wrinkled. I hadn't showered in days, and I carried my laptop in a backpack held together with duct tape. But when I demonstrated how Phoenix Connect could revolutionize social services nationwide, they saw something special. That first investment of $500,000 changed everything. I dropped out of MIT during my junior year, much to my professor's dismay, and moved to Silicon Valley. Phoenix Connect evolved from a simple resource app into a comprehensive social platform that helped vulnerable populations access everything from housing assistance to job placement programs. The growth was exponential. By 23, we had expanded to all 50 states. Major corporations began partnering with us for their corporate social responsibility programs. Government agencies started using our platform to streamline their services. What began as a simple app to help homeless kids had become a revolutionary tool for social change. 5 years later, Phoenix Connect employed over 10,000 people across North America. Our platform served more than 2 million users annually, and we had facilitated over $50 million in direct aid to people in need. Forbes called me a social entrepreneur redefining capitalism, and Time magazine included me in their 40 under 40 list. But the revelation that rocked me to my core came through my assistant Jennifer just 6 months before that text message arrived. She had been handling routine background checks for a new office lease when she discovered something troubling. "Casey, you need to see this," she said, walking into my corner office with a manila folder. Our security team found something odd during the standard checks. Inside the folder were invoices from a private investigation firm based in Newark, New Jersey. For 7 years, someone had been paying monthly fees for comprehensive reports on my activities. The requests included everything from my business dealings to my personal relationships, my public appearances, and even my home address. The client name on the invoices made my blood freeze. Ahmed and Farah Hassan, my parents. "They've been watching you this entire time," Jennifer said quietly, seeing the shock on my face. "Every major milestone, every achievement, every interview you've given. They know everything." I stared at those invoices, my hands shaking as I realized the full scope of their deception. For 15 years, they had maintained their story that I was dead to their community. They attended memorial services for me, accepted sympathy from friends and relatives, and lived as grieving parents who had lost their only child. But secretly, they had been tracking my every move, watching me build an empire while they continued their charade. They knew about my MIT scholarship, my first investment, my move to California, and my rise to billionaire status. They had observed my success from the shadows while publicly mourning my death. The betrayal felt fresh and raw, as if they had thrown me out all over again. Not only had they erased me from their lives, but they had been voyeurs to my triumph, watching me prove them wrong while never acknowledging my existence. I realized they had been waiting, calculating the perfect moment to re-emerge when my success could benefit them. That night, I sat in my penthouse apartment overlooking the San Francisco Bay, processing the weight of this discovery. I had built Phoenix Connect partly to help kids like me, kids who had been thrown away by their families. Now I understood that my parents had never really let me go. They had been keeping tabs on their investment, waiting for the right moment to cash in. When that text message arrived 3 weeks later, I knew exactly why they had chosen that moment to break their silence. That morning, Forbes had published their annual billionaire list, and my face was on the cover with the headline, "The Homeless Teen Who Built a $2 billion Empire." I forwarded the text to my lawyer, David Rodriguez, who had been handling my legal affairs since my second year in business. David was a sharp Puerto Rican attorney from the Bronx who understood what it meant to fight your way up from nothing. Within an hour, he was in my office with a briefcase full of documents. "They want something, Casey," he said, reviewing the background investigation reports. "People don't track someone for 7 years without an agenda." "Then let's find out what it is," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. David called the number and arranged to meet them that evening at Meridian, an upscale restaurant in downtown Newark where my father had always taken business clients. The location choice felt deliberate, designed to impress me with their supposed success. I dressed carefully for the encounter, choosing a navy blue Armani suit that had been featured in my Fortune magazine profile. David drove us to New Jersey in his Tesla, and we arrived 10 minutes early to observe our surroundings. The restaurant was exactly as I remembered from my childhood, all dark wood and leather booths, the kind of place where deals were made over expensive whiskey. My parents were already seated at a corner table when we walked in. I barely recognized them at first. My father Ahmed looked much older than his 58 years. His hair had gone completely gray, and his face was lined with stress. He wore an expensive-looking suit, but I noticed the cufflinks were cheap knockoffs of the gold ones he used to own. My mother, Farah, appeared fragile and nervous. She'd lost weight, and her traditional jewelry seemed too large for her thin wrists. Her sari was beautiful, but clearly not the designer pieces she used to prefer. She kept glancing around the restaurant as if she was afraid someone might recognize us. They stood awkwardly as we approached the table, unsure whether to attempt hugs or handshakes. The silence stretched uncomfortably until my father cleared his throat. "Casey, you look," he began in English, his accent thicker than I remembered. "You look successful." "I am successful," I replied evenly, taking my seat across from them. "David, these are my biological parents, Ahmed and Farah Hassan. Parents, this is David Rodriguez, my attorney." The introduction hung in the air like a challenge. By identifying them as my biological parents rather than simply my parents, I had immediately established the emotional distance between us. By bringing my lawyer, I had made it clear this was a business meeting, not a family reunion. My mother attempted small talk, asking about my health, my living situation, whether I had married. I answered with polite brevity while studying their faces for clues about their real motivation. They looked desperate beneath their attempts at normalcy. "We are very proud of what you have accomplished," my father said, finally, his hands fidgeting with his napkin. "We always knew you were special, intelligent, destined for great things." The lie was so audacious, I almost laughed. These were the same people who had declared me dead rather than allow me to pursue an education. I exchanged a glance with David, who gave me an almost imperceptible nod of encouragement. "Is that why you held a funeral for me?" I asked quietly. The color drained from both their faces. My mother's eyes filled with tears, and my father's jaw tightened. They had not expected me to know about their deception. "We can explain that," my mother whispered in Urdu. "Please speak English," I said firmly. "My lawyer needs to understand everything you say." My father took a deep breath and launched into what was clearly a prepared speech. Their import business was facing serious difficulties. They owed significant money to investors who had expected returns that never materialized. The market for traditional goods had shifted, and they had failed to adapt their strategy. "We have an opportunity to save everything," he said, pulling out a leather portfolio, "a chance to partner with someone who understands both technology and business." Inside the portfolio was a contract designating me as Chief Technology Officer of Hassan Imports with an initial investment requirement of $4 million. The terms were heavily weighted in their favor, giving me responsibility for turning around their failing company while they retained control of major decisions. "We've already spoken to our investors about bringing you on board," my mother added, her voice gaining confidence. "They are very excited to work with someone of your reputation." The audacity was breathtaking. They wanted me to rescue them financially while still maintaining their fiction that they had discovered their brilliant daughter was alive and willing to help the family business. They had positioned me as their secret weapon, the ace up their sleeve that would solve all their problems. "You told investors I was your partner before asking me," David interjected, his voice sharp. "We knew Casey would want to help her family," my father said defensively. This is what children do for parents who sacrificed everything to come to America. I felt a familiar rage building in my chest, the same fury that had sustained me through foster care and homeless shelters. They still saw me as their property, an asset to be deployed when convenient. The years of struggle, the nights I had gone hungry while building my company, the loneliness of growing up without family support, none of that mattered to them. They had simply been waiting for me to become valuable enough to be worth reclaiming. "How much do you owe?" I asked bluntly. $3 million, my father admitted. But with your investment and expertise, we can not only pay that back, but expand into new markets. Technology integration, online platforms, the things young people understand. I studied their faces, seeing the desperation they were trying to hide behind forced confidence. They had gambled everything on the assumption that I would be grateful for any contact from them, that 15 years of abandonment could be erased by their sudden willingness to acknowledge my existence. "What happens if I say no?" I asked. The question seemed to catch them off guard. They had not prepared for rejection. "Why would you say no?" my mother asked, genuinely confused. "We are your family. This is your chance to honor your parents, to show respect for the people who gave you life." Their entitlement was staggering. Even now, they framed their need for my money as my obligation to them. They showed no remorse for the funeral, no acknowledgement of the pain they had caused, no recognition that they had forfeited any claim to my loyalty when they declared me dead. I looked across the table at these two strangers who had once been the center of my universe and felt nothing but cold calculation. They were not here to rebuild our relationship or to apologize for their mistakes. They were here to exploit my success for their own survival. Just as my father began outlining the timeline for my supposed investment, David's phone vibrated with an urgent message. He glanced at the screen and gestured for me to step outside with him. "Excuse us for a moment," I said, standing up. "We'll be right back." In the restaurant's lobby, David showed me the text from his private investigator. The message was brief but explosive. "Found the insurance records. They collected $200,000 in life insurance when she was declared dead. Used it to start the business." My world tilted on its axis. Not only had my parents staged my funeral and maintained the lie for 15 years, but they had actually profited from my supposed death. They had filed insurance claims, collected money, and used my death as startup capital for their failing business venture. "Are you sure about this?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. David was already pulling up documents on his tablet. The investigator had sent photos of insurance paperwork, claim forms, and bank deposits. Everything was there, in black and white: a life insurance policy they had taken out on me when I was 10 years old, the death certificate they had filed, and the payout they had received 6 months after throwing me out. "They didn't just erase you," David said quietly. "They monetized your death." We returned to the table, and I sat down slowly, my mind racing with the implications. My parents continued their pitch, talking about market expansion and profit projections, completely unaware that I now knew the truth about their funding source. "Where did you get the initial capital for your business?" I asked, suddenly interrupting my father's explanation of their supply chain challenges. "We saved for many years," he said quickly. "Small amounts from the convenience store, careful budgeting, you know how it is." "Really?" I pulled out my phone and showed them the documents David had forwarded. "Because according to these insurance records, you received $200,000 when you declared me dead." The silence at our table was deafening. Around us, other diners continued their conversations, completely unaware of the drama unfolding in the corner booth. My mother's face went completely white, and my father's hands began shaking. "That is not what you think," my mother said, frantically switching to Urdu before catching herself. "Casey, you have to understand, we had no choice." "No choice but to commit insurance fraud?" David asked coldly. "She was already dead to us." My father said, his voice rising before he remembered where we were. "You chose to leave the family, to reject our culture, our values. We lost our daughter that day anyway." The twisted logic was stunning. In their minds, because they had emotionally rejected me, collecting life insurance money was simply recovering their investment in a child who had failed to meet their expectations. "So you decided to make my death profitable?" I said, my voice steady despite the fury building inside me. "We needed to survive," my mother pleaded. "After you left, the community looked at us differently. People questioned our parenting, our values. We lost customers, friends, stopped visiting. We had to rebuild our reputation and our livelihood by staging my funeral and collecting insurance money. The money helped us start over," my father said defensively. "We used it to honor your memory by building something lasting, something that would have made you proud if you had been the daughter we raised you to be." Their rationalization was breathtaking in its selfishness. They had not only stolen from me, but convinced themselves they were honoring my memory by profiting from my supposed death. The $200,000 had allowed them to lease warehouse space, purchase initial inventory, and establish Hassan Imports as a legitimate business. "How does this work exactly?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "You collect life insurance money for 15 years ago, build a business with my death benefits, and now you want me to invest my own money to save the company you built with my insurance payout." The circular logic finally seemed to penetrate their desperation. My mother began crying softly, dabbing at her eyes with her napkin. My father stared down at his hands, unable to meet my gaze. "We made mistakes," he admitted finally, "but we are still your parents. You still have an obligation to help family." "What family?" I asked. "You buried me 15 years ago. You mourned me, grieved for me, and moved on with your lives. The daughter you claim I should honor is dead. Remember, you held a funeral for her." David leaned forward, his voice professionally neutral but his eyes cold. "Insurance fraud is a federal crime. The statute of limitations hasn't expired on claims this large, especially when there's evidence of ongoing deception." "You would send your own parents to prison?" my mother asked, her voice breaking. "My parents are dead," I replied quietly. "You made sure of that 15 years ago." The weight of their deception was finally settling on them. They had gambled everything on their assumption that I would be too grateful for contact to ask difficult questions. Instead, they now faced the possibility of federal investigation for insurance fraud community exposure when their lies came to light and the loss of the business they had built on my supposed death. "What do you want from us?" my father asked. Finally, his voice hollow. "I want the truth," I said, "all of it, starting with exactly how much money you've collected over the years by pretending to be my grieving parents." David's investigator had been thorough in ways that even I hadn't anticipated. As my parents sat across from me in stunned silence, he forwarded additional findings that painted an even more disturbing picture of their deception. "It wasn't just the insurance money," I said, scrolling through the new documents on my phone. "You've been collecting sympathy donations from the community for 15 years. The blood drained from my father's face as I read aloud from the investigator's report. Members of their mosque had organized fundraisers to help the Hassan family cope with their tragic loss. Relatives had sent money every Ramadan in aid to support the grieving parents. Family friends had contributed to a memorial scholarship fund that supposedly honored my memory, but actually went directly into my parents' personal accounts. The Mahmood family alone has given you over $30,000. I continued watching my mother's hands tremble. The mosque community raised $58,000 through various fundraising events. Your own brothers and sisters have been sending monthly contributions for over a decade. The scope of their fraud was staggering. They had built their entire social standing on being the tragic parents who had lost their brilliant daughter in her prime. Every sympathy card came with a check. Every condolence visit included an envelope of cash. Every religious holiday brought donations from people who wanted to ease their supposed suffering. "We never asked for the money," my mother whispered desperately. "People gave it because they wanted to help." "But you took it. David said bluntly. "You've been accepting financial support under false pretenses for 15 years. They gave it to honor Casey's memory." My father said, his voice growing defensive again. "We used it to build something meaningful, something that would have made her proud. You used it to fund your lifestyle while pretending to mourn me," I corrected. "Every dollar was stolen from people who genuinely cared about a dead girl who was actually alive and fighting to survive." The investigators' report included financial records showing exactly how they had spent the community donations: payments for their house in an upscale neighborhood, lease agreements for expensive cars, receipts for family vacations to Pakistan, where they visited relatives while maintaining their grieving parent facade. Most painfully, the records showed they had used some of the memorial donations to pay for annual gravesite maintenance at the cemetery, where my empty casket was buried. They had been charging the community for flowers, headstone cleaning, and memorial services, while pocketing the excess. "Your own nephew just got married last month," I said, pulling up social media photos David had found. "I can see you at the wedding accepting condolences from relatives who still think I'm dead. Did you tell them how proud I would have been of my cousin? Did you cry about how much I would have enjoyed the celebration?" My mother broke down, completely sobbing into her hands as the full weight of their deception became clear. They were not just facing exposure of insurance fraud, but the complete destruction of their reputation within the tight-knit Pakistani-American community that had supported them. "The community will never forgive us," she cried. "We will lose everything, everyone." "You should have thought of that before you decided to profit from my death," I said coldly. My father tried a different approach, appealing to what he imagined was my business sense. "Casey, think practically. If this comes out, it hurts everyone. The families who donated money will feel foolish. The community will be divided. Your reputation could be damaged by association." "My reputation." I laughed bitterly. "My reputation is built on surviving what you did to me. The community finding out I'm alive will only prove how strong I had to become." David leaned back in his chair, studying my parents with professional detachment. "Let's talk numbers. Insurance payout of $200,000, community donations totaling approximately $400,000 over 15 years, memorial fund contributions of another $150,000. We're looking at close to $750,000 in fraudulent claims." "It's not fraud if we genuinely believed she was dead to us," my father said weakly. "That's not how federal law works," David replied. "Insurance fraud requires intent to deceive, which you clearly had when you filed false death certificates. The community donations constitute ongoing fraud through misrepresentation." I watched my parents realize that their situation was far worse than they had imagined when they sent that dinner invitation. They had expected to leverage my success for their benefit, but instead, they now faced potential criminal charges that could result in federal prison time. "What happens now?" my mother asked, her voice barely audible. "Now you have a choice." I said, my voice steady despite the emotions churning inside me. "You can continue lying and face federal investigation, community exposure, and criminal charges. Or you can start telling the truth and see if there's any possibility of redemption." "What kind of truth?" my father asked suspiciously. "All of it. You tell your community that I'm alive. You return the money you collected under false pretenses. You make public apologies to everyone you deceived. And you explain why you chose to stage my death rather than accept that your daughter had different dreams than the ones you planned for her." The restaurant around us continued buzzing with normal dinner conversations while we negotiated the terms of their potential redemption. Other families shared meals and laughter, completely unaware that 15 feet away, a family was trying to piece itself back together from the wreckage of lies that had sustained it for over a decade. "If we do this," my mother said slowly, "if we tell everyone the truth what happens to us, how do we rebuild after destroying so many relationships?" "That's not my problem to solve," I said honestly. "I'm offering you a chance to do the right thing before you're forced to do it by federal investigators." What you build from there is up to you. My parents looked at each other across the table, communicating in the wordless way that couples develop after decades of marriage. I could see them calculating the costs and benefits, trying to find an option that would preserve some version of their dignity while avoiding criminal prosecution. "We need time to think," my father said finally. "You have until tomorrow morning," I replied, standing up from the table. "David will be filing a report with the Insurance Commission and the FBI Financial Crimes Unit on Monday morning. Whether that report includes your cooperation or documents your refusal to come forward voluntarily is entirely your decision." As we walked toward the restaurant exit, my mother called out my name. I turned back to see her standing beside the table, her face streaked with tears. "Casey, we did love you. We still do. We made terrible choices, but please don't think we never loved our daughter." I looked at this woman who had given birth to me, raised me for 13 years, then erased me so completely that she profited from my supposed death. Part of me wanted to feel something, some remnant of the love I had felt for her as a child. "The daughter you loved died 15 years ago," I said quietly. "You made sure of that. The woman standing here now is someone you never gave a chance to exist." I spent that night in my Manhattan penthouse, unable to sleep as I processed the full scope of my parents' betrayal. David had arranged for additional security, worried that desperate people might make unpredictable choices when cornered, but I felt oddly calm, as if a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had finally been lifted. At 6 a.m, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Casey, please, we need to talk before you do anything irreversible," she said, her voice hoarse from crying. "Can we meet one more time?" "The same restaurant 1 hour, I said, and hung up. This time I arrived first and chose a different table, one near the center of the dining room, where our conversation would be more public. I wanted witnesses to whatever happened next. David joined me 10 minutes later, carrying a briefcase full of legal documents. My parents looked like they hadn't slept. My father's suit was wrinkled, and my mother's makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. They sat down heavily, and I could see they had aged years overnight. "We've been talking all night," my father began, "about what we did, about the choices we made, about the daughter we lost." "The daughter you threw away," I corrected. "Yes," he said quietly. "The daughter we threw away because we were too proud and too scared to accept that she was stronger than we were." It was the first acknowledgement of responsibility I had heard from him, and it caught me off guard. My mother reached across the table as if to take my hand, then thought better of it and pulled back. "We want to make this right," she said. "We're ready to tell everyone the truth." "All of it?" I asked. "All of it," my father confirmed. "The insurance fraud, the community donations, the 15 years of lies. We'll contact everyone who gave us money and arrange to pay it back." David pulled out his tablet and began making notes. "That's approximately $750,000 in fraudulent gains. How do you plan to repay that amount?" "We'll sell the house, liquidate the business, whatever it takes," my mother said. "We'll work with payment plans for the rest." "And the criminal charges?" I asked. "We'll turn ourselves in," my father said. "We'll cooperate fully with any investigation and accept whatever consequences come from our choices." I studied their faces, looking for signs of manipulation or calculation. Instead, I saw something I had never expected: genuine remorse. The desperation was still there, but underneath it was something that looked like understanding of the magnitude of what they had done. "Why now?" I asked. "Why are you suddenly willing to face the consequences?" My mother's voice broke as she answered. "Because sitting in our house last night, surrounded by all the things we bought with money, meant to honor your memory. We finally understood what we had done. We didn't just lose our daughter 15 years ago. We killed her ourselves and then profited from her death. We created a lie so elaborate that we started believing it ourselves," my father added. "We convinced ourselves that the money was helping us honor Casey's memory, that building a successful business was somehow making up for losing her. But we never lost you. We threw you away and then made money pretending to grieve." David was recording everything on his phone, creating an official record of their admissions. The legal implications were significant, but I found myself more interested in the emotional implications of their confession. "What changed your minds?" I asked. "Your success," my mother said simply. "Seeing what you accomplished despite everything we put you through made us realize how wrong we were about everything. We told ourselves you couldn't survive without family support, that you would fail without our guidance. Instead, you built something extraordinary. The daughter we tried to control and mold never would have created Phoenix Connect," my father said. "The real Casey, the one we rejected, became someone far more impressive than anything we could have shaped her into." It was a painful admission that our family dynamics had been fundamentally backwards from the beginning. They had seen my independence and ambition as character flaws that needed correction when they were actually the strengths that would define my life. "We have prepared a statement," my mother said, pulling out a handwritten letter. "We want to read it to you before we release it to the community." The letter was 3 pages long, written in both English and Urdu. It began with a full confession of the insurance fraud and community deception, followed by a detailed apology to everyone they had deceived. Most importantly, it included a complete retraction of their story about my death and an acknowledgement of my survival and success. "We want to send this to the mosque newsletter posted on social media and mail copies to everyone who donated money over the years," my father explained. "We know it will destroy our reputation, but we can't continue living a lie." David reviewed the statement carefully, making notes about legal language and potential criminal implications. "This is a full confession to multiple felonies. Are you certain you want to release this publicly before negotiating with prosecutors?" "We're certain," my mother said. "Our daughter has been dead to our community for 15 years. It's time for them to meet the real Casey." I felt a strange mix of emotions as I read their confession. Part of me was satisfied that they were finally accepting responsibility for their choices. Another part was sad that it had taken 15 years and the threat of federal prosecution for them to acknowledge the damage they had caused. "There's something else," my father said, reaching into his jacket pocket. "Something we should have given you a long time ago." He pulled out a small wooden box I recognized from my childhood. Inside were items I thought I would never see again. My grandmother's pearl earrings, the gold bracelet I had received for my 10th birthday, and a small stack of letters. "These are letters you wrote to your grandmother in Pakistan when you were 12, my mother explained. "We never sent them because we were angry about your behavior, but we kept them. Reading them last night, we remembered who you really were before we tried to change you." I opened the top letter and saw my own childish handwriting describing my dreams of becoming a scientist or maybe a teacher. I had written about wanting to travel the world to learn new languages, to help people solve their problems. Even at 12, I had been focused on making a positive impact rather than simply conforming to expectations. "We tried to kill these dreams," my father said quietly. "We thought they were dangerous, that they would take you away from us. We never understood that supporting your dreams was the only way to keep you in our lives." As I sat there holding letters from my younger self, I realized that this conversation was not just about their redemption, but about my own healing. For 15 years, I had carried the pain of rejection and abandonment. Now I was being offered something I had never expected: acknowledgement that their rejection had been wrong. "What happens after you release this statement?" I asked. "We face the consequences," my mother said. "We pay back the money, we accept whatever criminal charges come, and we try to rebuild our lives based on truth instead of lies." "And us, what happens to our relationship?" They looked at each other uncertainly, clearly not sure they had the right to hope for reconciliation. "We would like the chance to know the woman our daughter became," my father said carefully. "Not to control or change her, but just to understand who Casey really is." I thought about their request as I finished reading my childhood letters. The little girl who had written these dreams had grown up to achieve things far beyond what she had imagined. but she had done it alone without the support and encouragement that every child deserves from their parents. If you go through with this confession, if you truly make amends for what you've done, then maybe we can start over, I said slowly. Not as the family we were, but as the adults we've become. We would be honored by that chance, my mother said, tears streaming down her face. David closed his briefcase and looked at me for direction. The decision about how to proceed was mine to make. Release the statement, I said finally. Let's see what truth can build that lies never could. 3 days after my parents released their confession, my phone started ringing constantly. Members of their community were calling to express shock sympathy and surprisingly support for my survival and success. My uncle Rashid was the first family member to reach out directly. Casey Beta, we always wondered why your parents never let us visit your grave, he said in accented English, mixed with Urdu endearments. Something felt wrong, but we respected their grief. Now we understand why. Similar calls came throughout the week. Aunts, cousins, and family friends expressed relief that their instincts had been correct, that something about my parents' story had never quite made sense. Several relatives admitted they had tried to contact me through social media over the years, but couldn't find any trace of me, which had reinforced their belief that I was actually dead. The community's response was more complex than I had anticipated. While some people were angry about being deceived, many were more focused on celebrating my survival and achievements. The imam from my parents' mosque called personally to invite me to speak at their annual youth conference. Your story is exactly what our young people need to hear, he said, that they can succeed in America while maintaining their values, that they can overcome family rejection and still honor what is good about their heritage. My parents, meanwhile, were following through on their commitments with a dedication that surprised me. They had already sold their house and were living in a small apartment, using the proceeds to begin paying back the community donations. They had retained a criminal defense attorney and were cooperating fully with federal investigators. The legal consequences were significant but not as devastating as they had feared. Because they had voluntarily confessed and were making full restitution, prosecutors agreed to recommend reduced sentences. They would serve 18 months in federal prison, followed by community service and probation. More importantly, for their long-term recovery, they had begun attending family therapy sessions with a counselor who specialized in cultural conflicts and generational trauma. Dr. Sarah Amadi was a Nigerian-American therapist who understood the complexities of immigrant families struggling to balance tradition with assimilation. Your parents are learning to separate cultural preservation from authoritarian control, Dr. Amadi explained during one of our joint sessions. They confused maintaining their heritage with controlling your choices. These therapy sessions were awkward and painful, but also necessary. For the first time in my adult life, I was able to express directly how their rejection had affected me. They were able to acknowledge the fear and cultural pressure that had driven their decisions without using it to excuse the harm they had caused. We thought we were protecting you from a world that would reject you, my mother said during one particularly difficult session. Instead, we rejected you ourselves and forced you into that world alone. We were so afraid of losing our culture that we lost our daughter, my father added. We thought tradition meant controlling your future, when it should have meant giving you roots strong enough to support whatever dreams you chose to pursue. The breakthrough moment came 6 weeks into our therapy process. My mother brought a photo album I had never seen before, filled with pictures they had taken secretly during my childhood, whenever I was being curious, creative, or independent. Photos of me taking apart electronics to understand how they worked, building elaborate structures with blocks, teaching myself to code on an old computer. We were proud of these moments, she admitted, but we were also terrified by them because they meant you were becoming someone we couldn't control. Looking at those photos, I saw the child I had been before fear and cultural pressure had tried to reshape me. I also saw parents who had loved my curiosity even as they tried to suppress it. The tragedy was that the very qualities they had secretly admired were the ones that had ultimately driven us apart. 8 months after our first dinner confrontation, I made a decision that surprised even me. I established the Phoenix Foundation, a nonprofit organization focused specifically on supporting children who had been disowned or rejected by their families for cultural or religious reasons. The Foundation's first initiative was a scholarship program for LGBTQ youth immigrants' children and kids from religious families who faced rejection for their life choices. We provided not just financial support, but also counseling, mentorship, and community connections to help them build chosen families when their biological families failed them. My parents asked if they could volunteer with the foundation as part of their community service requirement. It seemed appropriate that they should spend their time helping other families avoid the mistakes they had made. "We can't undo what we did to you," my father said as we toured the foundation's first office space in downtown Manhattan. "But maybe we can help other parents understand what they're risking when they choose control over love." The foundation grew rapidly, attracting donations from successful professionals who had overcome family rejection, as well as support from celebrities and business leaders who wanted to champion family acceptance. Within 2 years, we were operating in 12 cities and had helped over 3,000 young people transition successfully to independence. During the Foundation's second annual gala, something unexpected happened. My parents, who had been volunteering with family counseling programs, approached the podium to speak about their experience. 15 years ago, we made the worst decision of our lives. My mother said, her voice steady despite her nervousness. We chose cultural expectations over our daughter's happiness. We chose control over love. We chose pride over family. Tonight we want every parent here to understand something we learned too late, my father continued. Your children's dreams are not a rejection of your values. Their independence is not a betrayal of your sacrifice. Their success on their own terms is not a failure of your parenting. The speech was not planned or rehearsed. They had simply felt compelled to share their story as a warning to other families facing similar conflicts. The standing ovation that followed lasted for several minutes, and many parents in the audience were wiping away tears. After the gala, as we stood together outside the hotel, I realized that we had achieved something I never thought possible. We had not recreated the family we used to be, but we had built something new and healthier on the foundation of truth and mutual respect. "I'm proud of you," my mother said quietly as we waited for our cars. "Not because of your success or your money, but because of your courage to forgive people who didn't deserve it." "I'm proud of you too," I replied honestly. "It takes courage to admit you were wrong about everything and start over." My father smiled, and for the first time in decades, it looked genuine rather than calculated. Maybe this is what family is supposed to be. Not people who control each other, but people who choose to support each other's growth. As I drove home that night, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought us to this point. My parents' greed and desperation had led to their confession, but their confession had led to genuine transformation. The family that had declared me dead had been reborn into something stronger and more honest. The Phoenix Foundation continued to grow, eventually serving over 10,000 youth annually and expanding internationally. My parents completed their prison sentences and continued volunteering, becoming some of our most effective counselors for families in crisis. 5 years after that first dinner, I received a different kind of text from my mother. This time, it was a photo of my cousin's daughter, a bright 6-year-old who wanted to be an astronaut when she grew up. The message read, "Zara wants to study science like her famous cousin Casey. We told her family that dreams are not dangerous, they are gifts to be nurtured." I smiled as I looked at the photo, seeing in this little girl the same curiosity and ambition that had once terrified my parents. But this time, instead of trying to suppress her dreams, the family was celebrating them. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most can become the people who teach us the most about forgiveness and growth. My parents had declared me dead 15 years ago, but in doing so, they had forced me to become fully alive. Their betrayal had taught me independence, their rejection had taught me resilience, and their eventual redemption had taught me that people can change if they're willing to do the difficult work of examining their mistakes. The daughter they had tried to control would never have built Phoenix Connect or the Phoenix Foundation. The woman they had rejected had become someone who could help thousands of other rejected children find their own paths to success and fulfillment. As I sat in my office that evening looking out at the Manhattan skyline and thinking about all the young people who would benefit from our programs, I realized that being declared dead had actually been the beginning of my real life. Sometimes you have to lose everything to discover who you really are. I hope this story resonates with anyone who has ever felt rejected or abandoned by the people who were supposed to love them unconditionally. Have you ever had to rebuild your relationship with family members who hurt you? How did you find the courage to forgive while still protecting yourself? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched you, please like this video to help it reach others who might need to hear it. Subscribe to my channel for more stories about overcoming family trauma and building the life you deserve. And don't forget to share this with anyone who might benefit from knowing that survival is possible. Success is achievable. And sometimes the family that declares you dead can help you discover how truly alive you can become. Thank you for listening, and remember that your dreams are not a betrayal of your family's hopes for you. They are the foundation upon which you'll build the life you were meant to live.